Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the second ever episode of TJacks Unpacks, where I will be unpacking Donald Trump's very, very long and rambling speech to joint Congress. And guys, this is my first kind of instant reaction video, and it is past midnight recording this because this was the longest joint address in modern history, which I shouldn't have been surprised with how much Trump loves to speak and ramble in his speeches. So what I'm going to do, guys, for this reaction is I'm going to give my overall kind of thoughts. We're going to discuss some of the predictions that I made and see what came true, because I want to hold myself accountable. And then I'm kind of going to go chronologically through some of the most important parts of this very long, drawn out speech. And I'm going to pick out the parts, guys, that I think impact us most as average Americans, because that's what matters most. A lot of the 90 plus minutes was a lot of braggadocious nonsense that doesn't really have anything to do with you or me. But I will pick out, or try my best to pick out, the clips that I thought were the most important. And guys, before we jump into this, you may see my background's a little different today. I am not in the nursery because, like I said, I am recording this past midnight, and little guy happens to be asleep right now. And any parents or soon-to-be parents, best believe when your child is asleep, you will do anything to make sure they stay asleep. So we were not going to mess up his sleep cycle here. Now, overall thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, from this speech. We have someone in office who cares more about himself and bragging and getting round of applause than he cares about at all you and me, the average person. Most of what he was talking about in terms of getting rich, he was talking to other Republican colleagues in the millionaire and billionaire class. There was very limited content, in this speech. I apologize, guys, if I stutter a little bit more than normal. It's late. But there was very little content that actually had anything to do with the problems facing the average American. I was left thinking, this is great if you're rich, but there is about to be a ton of pain if you are not in the top 1%. And I was also left thinking, and I have my notes here, guys, to the side. I was left thinking that he does not understand foreign policy or diplomacy beyond a very elementary level whatsoever. So let's take a look at my predictions, because I'm big on accountability, guys. And as we build this community, I want you guys to hold me accountable. So if I make an incorrect statement, if I have a position you think I should consider that I'm not considering, please hold me accountable. But on my Instagram page before this speech went out, I ultimately made 4 kind of predictions. So I'm going to go through these and see what he addressed or didn't address. So the first one was tariffs. Trump did spend time talking about tariffs, and as I predicted, he did try to phrase it as a positive thing for the country. Now, tariffs do have the potential to benefit the country long term, depending on how they're implemented and enforced. But the reality is these tariffs are going to make my and your life, the average American, more expensive. The price of average everyday items are about to go through the roof. So make sure you are prepared for some financial, hardship in the upcoming months. The second one, I will admit I was wrong on. You may argue I was partially right, but I'm a hard grader, so I'm just going to say I was wrong on that. He didn't really mention Gaza or Palestine or Israel too much in this speech. I think that is too hot topic of an issue right now for him to touch, so he kind of stayed away from that. He did, though, try to, he's basically sided with the side of Russia in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. That's not surprising with what happened with Zelensky, Vance, and Trump at the White House, but it definitely came up as sympathizing with Russia and making Ukraine look like the villain in this situation. Now, budget cuts and immigration. This is a large chunk of his speech. He continually, honestly lied over and over and over again about so many things, but particularly with the budget cuts and immigration. He bragged often at successes when a lot of these cuts are just going to hurt average day Americans. And a lot of the cuts were lies. A lot of what he said about immigrants and immigration were also lies. Last but not least, I kind of did predictions about what I thought he would address and what he wouldn't. And what I put in things he wouldn't address, or really I focused on things that he wouldn't address, are items that are most important to us as American people, as average American citizens. So childcare, healthcare, things like that. He really only minorly addressed grocery prices, which I'll get to in a second. So I will give myself a 6.5 out of 7 in terms of not addressing any of these important issues you see on your screen, other than kind of grocery prices a little bit. Now, I am going to give you guys the Cliff Notes or Spark Notes version of this speech. And the first real fireworks moment, I would say, came with from Al Green, who is a Democratic representative from Texas, who stood up during Trump's speech, interrupted him. I couldn't hear, guys, what he said fully, but I will show you the clip, and he ultimately got removed from the proceedings.
Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Now, what I also saw throughout this speech was some Democratic pushback. They had some paddles up about trying to protect Medicaid, about Elon Musk stealing money, just a variety of things. So I will say it was nice seeing Democrats push back a little bit on this very extreme agenda that's not going to help the average American whatsoever and just make our lives harder. So it was really nice to see that. And I do have a shout out for Al Green for speaking up. We need more of that. Speak up. Do not stay silent. We don't want that from our representatives, particularly in a moment like this. Now, I want to play another clip, and this may be harsh reality if you're a Democrat or you don't like Trump, but I think this to be true.
The people elected me to do the job, and I'm doing it.
So the reality of the situation, guys, is he is doing a lot of what he campaigned on. Now, you may be questioning, like, but his favorability is at a low. It's at a historic low. A vast majority of Americans do not like what's happening at all. So what's the disconnect? A lot of people did not understand what they were voting for, and or they thought Trump would not actually enforce a lot of the extreme policies. So the reality is, guys, and this is true with Republicans, and it's a lot of where Republicans get strength and Democrats show a lot of weakness, is regardless of the policy, whether it's good or bad for me or most Americans, Republicans tend to try to enact the exact things they say they're going to do. Democrats will virtue signal and they'll be on the right side theoretically of issues, but then they get nothing done. So the reality is Trump is really just enacting the stuff he said he would do. You can hate that reality, but that's the truth. Now, in my opinion, please push back on the comments, guys. I want to hear from you, whether you agree or disagree with me. So please fill up those comments. I will do my best to respond. After that, he bragged a lot about nonsense achievements that, once again, have no impact on you or me, like renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, making English the official language, things like that. He went on for that for a while. Has no impact on our life. Now, he then talked about bringing down the prices, and I'm going to play the clip for you because really his plan was turning to one of his cabinet members and saying, basically, do a good job.
Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control, and we're working hard to get it back Down, Secretary. Do a good job on that. You inherited a total mess from the previous administration. Do a good job.
Now, that doesn't seem like a very robust plan to me, but you guys can be the judge. He did mention, because I want to give credit where credit is due, guys. I am beholden to policies, not politicians. He did say during his speech later that he would push for a policy for no tax on tips, overtime, or Social Security benefits. Now, that would be great. I know he mentioned that before, but I need to see that actually written in legislation, and I have not seen that yet. So that will be great if that passes, but we need to keep an eye on that and see if that's just like something he's saying or something he's actually going to do. Now, moving forward, for me, ladies and gentlemen, this kind of part is some of the most troubling parts of this speech and really Trump's whole agenda, which is drilling for oil and fossil fuels and really just exacerbating the destroying of the planet. There was a moment where he gave his, infamous, because it's going to be infamous in the long term, drill baby drill line. And I just want to play it for you guys and then react to that afterwards.
That's why on my first day in office, I declared a national energy emergency. As you've heard me say many times, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any nation on earth, and by far. And now I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it. It's called Drill, Baby, Drill.
So the reason I kind of extended that a little farther into the applause is when we have continuous, more serious natural disasters in this country year after year, the next 4 years, and well beyond, a large part of that you can attribute to everyone clapping in that clip. Guys, we as a country, the United States already burns and produces more fossil fuels and oil than any other country in the world. This idea that we're not burning off insane amounts of fossil fuel is inaccurate. And in fact, we would be in a far better place, not only globally, as these natural disasters continue to wipe out communities, but we would be much better financially if we would actually invest in green energy, because it's inevitable. Okay, the reason they are called renewables is because you can use them again. If we just go full bore into burning fossil fuels, not only does it destroy the climate for honestly more recent generations than you may think, like present people in their 20s, 30s, but if you have children or grandchildren, you are burdening them with a problem that they're not going to forgive you for. It's going to be something very difficult for them to overcome. And this climate policy is just going to make things much, much worse for future generations. I really don't know what else to say about that. That is just deeply concerning. After that, guys, he parroted the Social Security lie that, millions of dead people and ridiculously old people until like almost 200 years old are getting Social Security checks. Hopefully you guys know that's a lie. You can Google it yourself, but that's not true. That's just unhinged talking points. He then did the gold card embarrassment, which is basically allowing people to buy citizenship into the country for $5 million. First of all, the United States already has a policy in place that is far cheaper to bring businesses into the United States. Also, bringing in people who have $5 million to spare will only increase income inequality in the United States and hurt me or you. What do you think, guys, practically is going to happen if you import a bunch of millionaires into the country? it's going to inevitably increase income inequality, particularly under our current tax system and the proposed tax system that the Republicans have in place. So that gold card thing just, once again, that's just an embarrassment, in my opinion. He also talked about the tax cuts, guys, that are in place. I encourage you to read that bill. The tax cuts are going to add trillions of dollars to the debt while overwhelmingly benefiting the rich. That is Republican tax cut strategy 101, going back to, honestly, Reagan. Cut taxes for the rich. What that does is that increases income inequality and wealth inequality also. So that is going to balloon, I would imagine, under this administration, assuming that budget bill gets passed. And I don't see why it won't, considering the Republicans do control, obviously, the executive branch, the House, and the Senate. Now, moving forward, another just hypocrisy 101. Trump talked about supporting police, but then at the same time released a bunch of January 6 insurrectionists who beat police officers. The hypocrisy with this man knows no bounds. There's no sticking to fact, logic, reason. It's kind of just whatever comes to his mind and what he feels. But it doesn't matter if it's reality at all. Now, a really concerning point for me came a little over the hour mark. I was still, at this point, guys, it was a difficult listen. It was not inspiring. It was not exciting to listen to. You could actually see over time, every third sentence he would say was an obligatory, I'm a Republican, I have to stand up and give a round of applause. Now, to be fair, the Democrats do the same thing. Anytime there is a speech, it's like every third line, they have to come up and give the most rousing round of applause as if they cured cancer. So that's what adds a lot of time, is that ridiculous showmanship that's just, it's just laughable, to be quite honest with you. But kind of getting to something more serious, he parroted the autism line, which is true fundamentally about more people being diagnosed with autism. But the issue is that is giving red meat to the anti-vax community. So if you guys know anything about this autism line of reasoning, a lot of it is stemming from anti-vax rhetoric, which has been disproven. But a lot of people think that vaccines are causing autism, hence less people are getting vaccinated. So to have and we see measles outbreaks across the United States now. It's starting to spread state to state. So to have the president of the United States with think about all the health problems he could have addressed, right? Feeding kids appropriate meals in schools, some of the carcinogenic items that are in a lot of the food we eat, food deserts, all of these different, health problems, access to health care. But instead, one of the only things he mentioned when he talked about healthcare was autism. I need you guys to think about that and what he's trying to do. As someone with a young kid who cannot get vaccinated yet against measles, I will be very honest, I am terrified. Out of all of his appointments, guys, as someone who is a father, the RFK Jr. appointment is the most concerning for me. Because, guys, if we don't have health and well-being, nothing else matters, right? If you have a sick child, that becomes your entire life. Nothing's more important than that. If you are sick yourself, right, it becomes very impossible to proceed with anything the rest of your life. So for him, once again, could have talked about a bunch of things. For him to cue in on that, he did that intentionally to kind of throw some meat to that anti-vax community. And that's very concerning. Now, moving on, I'm going to kind of flip the script. It's hard to do a 180. I'm just thinking about that. But doing a 180, something positive that is true that he did say, I fact checked it. we do have increased recruitment to our armed forces right now under the Trump administration, which is a great victory. Okay. Once again, credit with credit is due, guys. I am not beholden to politicians. I will keep saying that. I am beholden to policies that are going to help me and you, regardless of who is delivering that policy. So that is a huge win because for the past few decades, we've actually struggled with recruitment. So I don't know. I also want to be honest. I don't know what Trump's doing that actually has any impact on that. I would be interesting to see if it's like a, analyze the correlation causation effect. But the reality is of the situation, recruitment is going up, and that is a great thing to see that we have people volunteering to do that. Now, what I don't like is he also mentioned increased defense spending. Guys, our military budget is ridiculously bloated. It is insane. And not only is it insane, the Pentagon can't pass an audit. So they're getting an insane amount of money, and then they're unable to account for what the money is being used for. If Elon Musk and Doge want to look for fraud, I mean, first you can look at your own government contracts that you get, Elon. That would help eliminate some fraud and open up some taxpayer money. But another thing you can look at is the Department of Defense and the Pentagon. But instead, they're actually, in this speech, Trump is mentioning giving even more money to the defense budget. Now, guys, honestly, the rest of the speech, and this is maybe just my perspective, and if anyone actually watched the whole thing, and guys, normally I would encourage you to go to the source and watch the whole thing, and if you want to, that's honestly probably the best thing to do, but it is very unlikely you will be enjoying those 99 minutes. A lot of it at the end was just anecdote after anecdote after anecdote that just, in my opinion, became very tiring. And guys, that's a lot of the way my brain works. The anecdotes do not do much for me unless they match reality. So what I want to give you guys an example for, Trump loves demonizing the immigrant community, right? He has done it so effectively, to his credit, that a lot of Americans believe that most immigrants are violent or criminals or drug traffickers or sex traffickers, are insane, which the facts do not support that whatsoever. It's just a lie. It's just a made up feeling. Now, guys, I don't want you to misconstrue my facts. Of course, when anyone gets unalived, I think that's what I have to say so this doesn't get flagged, it is a tragedy. But what Trump is doing is he's equating violence to immigrants. And all of the stats show us that immigrants are far less violent than American citizens, than citizens born in the United States. You are more likely to commit a crime if you are a naturally born U.S. citizen than if you're an immigrant. And immigrants bring far more value to this country than they do harm by many, many, many degrees. But he has basically made immigrants, and he also did this with the trans community, he's making them into a boogeyman, and he's using anecdotes to do it. So going to the trans story, he made it out to believe that trans athletes are coming into every single sporting event and winning every single event and pushing young girls out of every single podium position. Guys, just look it up, or just go to your local, like, if you have children, look at who's participating. That's just not reality. But once again, political credit, I guess, where it's due, he is able, and Democrats, you need to learn from this. He is able to convince people of things that are not true due to the way he communicates and the way the right wing has a messaging infrastructure set up. I kind of mentioned this, guys, in my first episode, but it doesn't matter what the reality is. It really doesn't in this political climate. What matters is your ability to get your message through to the voter. And what a lot of this showed me is just Trump is really an effective communicator to enough of Americans where they believe him, regardless of what the facts say or not. And that does objectively leave a difficult battleground for the Democrats moving forward. But with that said, guys, I want to leave you with one final thing. I try to leave on a positive note because there were not many positive things to come out of that speech in terms of benefits for me or you, the average American. But as I think most Americans do, or a good chunk, me and my wife like doing a thing, guys, where we scroll through social media. And then we'll send each other reels. And then you go watch it together later in the day. Don't tell me I'm the only one or we're the only couple who did this. And usually I try to be relatively serious on this podcast, guys, because these are serious issues. But if I'm going to keep myself mentally sane from time to time, we have to laugh. And this came across our reel page, our algorithm recently. And I just thought it was incredibly hilarious. And I don't know if I'm late to the party, but this is the first time I have seen Trump called this. And this person, shout out to Court 1004. And I don't know if this is a true story or not, but she called him Velveeta Voldemort. And the level of laughter that came out of me when I saw that the first time, because it worked on so many levels, not only the orangeness, but like the gooiness, the like chunkiness of it. And then Voldemort, obviously the kind of bad person leading everything. And it just made me think of him leading the Death Eaters. I don't know. I just thought it was absolutely hilarious. I don't know if that nickname has been going around for a while or it is new. But I always think we need to lighten things up from time to time. And best believe if you are a Republican who's offended by that, I will be roasting the Democrats as well from time to time. Don't you worry. If you don't believe that, see how angry I am at the Democratic Party in that very first video that I made. So guys, that wraps up my first reaction video ever. So please fill up those comments below. Let me know what you think. Did you agree with my takes? Do you disagree with my takes? Or did you disagree with some? Did you agree with others? Did you like the format? Do you want to see, more reaction videos in the future? I'll be honest, guys, it is now almost 12:45. If he's going to speak this long, I don't know how often I can do it, but anything honestly is on the table as we continue to grow this community. So please let me know what you think in the comments. And until next time, I am TJacks, and I just unpacked Trump's speech to joint Congress.